Hello, welcome to our channel. Click the subscribe button below if you want to see more content like this. Today we will talk about Samuel Little, America's most prolific serial killer by a number of victims. Samuel Little has confessed murdering 93 people in the span of 34 years between 1970 and 2005. He has killed more people than Jeffrey Dahmer and John Wayne Gacy combined. Samuel was born on June 7, 1940, in the U.S. state of Georgia to a mother who was a sex worker. After his birth, his mother took no interest in him and sent him to his grandmother in Ohio, who would raise him. Samuel was rather unsuccessful in school and had disciplinary problems. While still in elementary school, he began to develop fantasies about strangling women because of a teacher who he claimed had touched his neck. These fantasies haunted him even after he went to Hawthorne Junior High School. He began collecting crime magazines that included stories of murdered women. In 1956, at the age of 16, Samuel Little was arrested in Nebraska for burglary and trespassing. Because of his age, he was sent to an institution for juvenile offenders. From 1957 to 1975, he was arrested 26 times in 11 different states for crimes ranging from burglary to assault. Could a man who committed so many crimes have a girlfriend? He did have a girlfriend named Jen. There is not much information about this woman, except for the fact that she died soon. During prison, Little took up boxing that would be useful to subdue his future victims. In December 1976, Little was arrested again and sentenced to 3 months in prison for 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault against a woman named Pamela. Years later, he was arrested again for burglary and also faced charges for the murder of a 22-year-old woman. However, he was tried for the murder of a 26-year-old Patricia Mount, who had gone missing and whose lifeless body had been found 2 months earlier in Florida. In January 1984, he was acquitted after the trial that lasted a few days. That same year, Little was arrested and tried for an attempted murder of Lori Burrows and sentenced to 4 years in prison. In 1987, the lifeless body of another woman was found. In 1989, the bodies of 2 more women, Apodaca and Audrey, were found in the same place. All 3 of the women must have been strangled to death in the same way. From 1990 to 2013, Little continued to break the law in 7 different states. He was arrested many times for crimes such as theft, drug possession, and drunk driving. But the serial killer's luck was about to run out. Little was living in a shelter in Kentucky when he was taken into custody once again on September 5, 2012 to defend himself against a drug charge. The investigation led to DNA tests to establish his involvement in the murder of Apodaca, Linda and Audrey. DNA test initiated by the Los Angeles Police Department in October the same year proved Little's implicitly in yet another woman's murder. Little couldn't get away with his crimes anymore. During the trial, a detective described him as a professional thief who left a trail of bodies behind him. He was a thief by day and a murderer by night. He would spend his days stealing and spend his money to bring women to his car and kill them. Despite not pleading guilty, Little was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murders on September 25, 2014. He was sentenced to 3 life sentences without parole and sent to the Los Angeles County, California State Prison. Outside the courthouse, Assistant District Attorney told reporters that Samuel Little was a serial killer who had been committing murders for many years. After serving 4 years in prison, Little confessed all crimes he had committed. He received a 4th life sentence for the murder of Denise Christie brothers in Texas. When asked about the reason behind his crimes, Little said, "I say if I can help get somebody out of jail, then God might smile a little bit more on me." He often had intercourse with lifeless bodies of his victims, leaving their naked bodies on the side of the road. Little was convinced that he would not be arrested as the victims he chose were sex workers and drug addicts, and therefore their deaths would not be investigated. Unfortunately, he was right. Many of these women's deaths were attributed to drug overdoses and accidental or natural deaths. Little had never thought of attacking housewives in white neighborhood out of the fear of being arrested. When interrogated, Little confessed most of his chilling crimes. His detailed and disturbing confession was recorded by the FBI. Little is thought to have committed all these murders between the years of 1970 and 2005. According to an FBI officer, Little remembered almost every detail of each of his crimes, ranging from where he committed the murder to the model of the car. He could even draw sketches of the women he killed. This was a very disturbing and horrifying detail. He was convinced he was very good at both drawing and fighting. Not only did he remember what his victims looked like, but he also gave detailed description of the crimes he committed from the beginning to the very end. One of his most striking confessions was a murder that he committed in the early 70s. He narrated meeting an attractive transgender black woman named Mary or Moraine in Miami, Florida in the year of 1971 or 1972. Little had met her at the 17th Street. A few days later, they met at a bar again on the day Little offered her a ride to her home. The woman was living with her roommates. When they arrived at her house, one of Mary's friends returned to Little's car, as one of them wanted to sell him a bar of shaving cream. Little drove Mary to the north in the 27th Highway and probably killed her in a driveway near a sugarcane field. He then drove away to a road that led to a river or a swamp. He dragged Mary's lifeless body into the river. He couldn't believe it when the body was found. It's unknown whether it was the first murder he committed. However, the way he took the lives of his victims was almost identical. His confessions proved that his crimes were alike. He was the worst and most unrepentant serial killer, according to many investigators involved in his case. Little believed he was sent by God to alleviate misery and suffering of his victims. At other times he felt possessed by the devil. He believed he was sent by God to do this job in the world on his behalf. He said he believed no one else could have done what he did and kill so many people. He perceived his crimes as matter of honor as well as a curse that was haunting him. Samuel Little was suffering from a heart disease and diabetes and was confined to a wheelchair. He died on December 30, 2020 at the age of 80 in a hospital in Los Angeles. His death left many unanswered questions about his crimes.